Well, I've got 7 o'clock. So we'll just, if there are others who are trying to join, we'll just let them in the room as they come along. I'm Gwen Falconberry, Director of Arkansas Strong, and I'd like to welcome you to our first training for legislative engagement. We have Ezra Smith here, who is an attorney who volunteered his time and expertise to create this training in response to some of your questions and concerns, and just the felt need to be equipped to do this work, standing up for public education. So I'm just going to turn this over to him, but this is really informal. If we have questions as we go along or need to jump in and say something, feel free. And Ezra, are you there?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Gwen.
All right.
So yeah, like my name is Ezra Smith. Like Gwen said, I'm an attorney. I practice in Fayetteville. My background is sort of in political organizing, and so that's what this training is sort of supposed to be an intro into. So I do not do education policy or politics of any kind, and certainly I'm not like a master in PowerPoint, so please, no judgment. There won't be any fancy animations or anything. But this is sort of just supposed to be a general primer. We're going to talk about maybe 4 subject areas, 2 of them really quickly, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time just sort of talking about what it means to organize for policy in the state legislature, right? What does it look like to be for a bill, against a bill, and kind of, how do we take all of these things that are, desires, things that we want to see happen in public education, and how do we translate that into direct action into the legislature? So we can go to the next one. I just wanted to start here, sort of parameters wise. In talking with Arkansas Strong and talking with, this coalition, it's very clear that the mission is to improve public education, right? I think there's a lot of ways that we can go about that. There's a lot of policy that can affect those goals. But talking about here and now and what it looks like in the legislative session, it seems to be that one of the biggest policies, right, is let's increase teacher pay. That makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, teachers are going to be the key to every other policy outcome, every other thing we want to see improve in schools. And it's also a huge problem, right? Arkansas is lagging behind. And so one of our main policy goals that we've identified is increasing teacher pay. Now, that's not to say that we're against other good ideas, right? It's not zero sum. We think we can do, a lot of good things, but in terms of priority, that'd be the first one. And then there's also, there's sort of offense, there's also defense. And what we've seen and in the latest news and the months leading up to this legislative session is that there are going to be a lot of bad bills coming our way. The more that we hear, it looks like they're all going to be packaged into at least a single bill that Governor Sanders is supporting, but there may be other things. And so part of our mission too is to stand up for public education and try to stop things that we think are going to, pull us backwards. We can go to the next one. So this is a general roadmap of what we're going to talk about, and I don't know how long this was billed for. We're definitely not going to go an hour. We'll probably be under 30 minutes. But we're going to start with just the general session and a little bit of constitutional law, kind of basic reminders, nothing very deep. I'm going to talk about sort of the school choice narrative, very briefly, broad strokes, and then jump in basically into a few facts I think that no one or few folks are really considering about public education and what that fight looks like. And then we're going to conclude on organizing. That's kind of going to be the bulk of what we talk about. So we can hop to the next. A little schoolhouse rock, right? And sorry, it's because the next 2 slides may be just a little bit boring. I think it's really important, right, that we, as supporters of public education, and many of you who are educators, realize that our first goal here is to educate. Right? When you're ever entering a space and you're trying to engage people to do something in politics, it's essential, right? We sort of put out what the playing field is. And so we're talking about the state of Arkansas, we're talking about state government. We're particularly talking about the legislative branch, right? There are three branches of government. We have the Supreme Court in Arkansas, the judicial branch, we have the governor, the executive branch, we have the legislature, the legislative branch. So we can click to the next one. In Arkansas, and like most states, right, our legislature is made up of two chambers. We have a Senate, which is an upper house, a smaller house of 35 members. And then we have the lower house, right, the House of Representatives, sort of more of the people's house of 100 members. As you can see, right, and if you've been, paying much attention to Arkansas politics in the last couple decades, Arkansas has become a pretty solidly Republican state. This isn't, this training is certainly not about politics and have any partisan affiliation. But you can just see here, right, looking at the numbers, that Republicans control the board here in the legislature. For folks who care to know, right, they have what's called supermajorities. And so the Republican majority in the House and the Senate can pass pretty much any bill it needs without resorting to, votes from the minority party, from the Democrats. And so when we're thinking about this political environment, right, we need to be thinking about how do we engage legislators who, for the most part, are conservative Republicans, right, and who have a certain worldview, right? That's not, I'm not making any comment on it, but it's, it's about meeting many of these legislators where they are, right, rather than trying to provoke a conflict or get into that partisan fight, right? And so I think the context of what's going on here matters, right? When we talk about committee meetings, committee hearings, up or down votes, the Republican Party and its members are going to be the ones who are deciding, right, whether or not these are successful. And so our efforts sort of hinge on doing a lot of convincing when it comes to the majorities that make up both chambers. And so bear with me here. The next slide is like, it may cause you to panic a little bit, but just hang on. So this is great. Jenny supplied me with this. This is sort of a breakdown of the legislative process, and I'm not going to bore you. I'm just going to highlight some of the crucial moments, right, where we can sort of engage. And that starts at the top, right? There's the little light bulb. And I wish I could say that our legislator had like great ideas that you could label with a light bulb, but that's just, it's mostly copy and paste from other states. But it starts there, right? It starts with a member of the House or the Senate who proposes a bill, right? And the way that they do that is they talk to the Bureau of Legislative Research. They give them broad objectives, right? And then those attorneys take that, they look at the Arkansas Code, they see what changes that would entail, and they propose amendments, right, to the code, or maybe new legislation, or it repeals something, and that takes the form of a bill. That bill becomes filed. That's sort of the first time we get to really hear about it, right, unless we know about things going on behind the scenes. And so when bills are filed, it's a really important time for coalitions like ours to make our voices heard, right? Because it's really the first time public debate is going to occur on the bill, right? Not in the chamber, because it's too soon, but in terms of the, trying to set the tone of what does this bill mean for Arkansas? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it going to take us back, right? Setting the tone early is crucial. And so our group is going to be monitoring, every bill that's filed. And Jenny and Gwen and other folks are going to be disseminating news. And it's important, right, that we're highlighting when bills are filed and we're getting our takes out early on, what they could be. A bill is then assigned after it's read, which is just a formality. It's assigned to a subject matter committee. For our purposes, right, we're going to be looking at the House and Senate education committees. These bills will be heard in each committee. They'll be read, but they'll also be heard. And there will be an opportunity for legislative comment and also public comment. And so committee hearings are sort of the second, right, in one of the big opportunities. And we want to talk more about committee testimony and showing up and what that looks like. But it's an opportunity, right, to sort of correct the record, right? You can have folks who can go on and testify who know about the policy, who are educators, who are experts. They can educate the legislature. It's also a time for sort of earned media, right? A big crowd full of folks who are supporting public ed, showing up, making themselves, visible on the Capitol is really big, right? That doesn't happen a lot of the time. And when it does, local press in Arkansas will key in on it. So that's sort of the second major place where we can kind of play a role in the process. And you can see here, there's the three circles on the third line that references, how they will pass on a bill. Do not pass, do pass as amended. It's important to know, we may have some victories in the House or Senate Education Committee. It may be possible that bad legislation is held up there. But even if a bill comes down in committee and it's not referred to pass, it can still be brought back and considered again. So nothing that happens in the committee is really final except passage. You can keep scrolling down, right, and you're following the lines as it go. The next part that really matters is the House or Senate chamber votes, which is the up or down vote where the entire body has to vote for or against the passage of the bill. And those are really big moments, right? I mean, it's sort of the last step in the process. And it's a time where we can certainly make ourselves heard online, but it's a time when the legislators are really giving consideration, right? If they're not on the committee, this is their first time to deal with the bill. And so that's our opportunity to kind of expand our targets within the legislature of who we're talking to, what does that persuasion look like? Because there are plenty of times, I mean, just as someone who's been involved with the legislature in the last 10 years, that bills have failed because of pressure that's placed in that final period. So like I said, don't worry too much about this. I mean, we're going to be giving you opportunities, right, to testify at committee, to show up, to be in the gallery, to be in the main, the lobby area, and sort of, do those visibility events. But we're also going to be passing out, really vital information, tweet sheets, talking points, things that you can personalize. And so, you may hear from us, this bill's been filed, we gotta make our voices heard, or this certain bill is in committee, we think it's going to be heard, on a Tuesday that's coming up, and we need some folks who are going to get involved and go there. And so this is sort of just a runner, right? I mean, we're going to be passing out a lot of stuff about this, so don't feel overwhelmed or needing to understand, all the House and Senate rules. We can go to the next. So I'm going to just move to kind of the second point of our PowerPoint. And that's just what we are hearing, from like Governor Sanders' office, from a lot of the sort of what I'll call like big think tank groups. There's a lot of like policy groups that are sort of funding a lot of things. Like we saw a big, privatization like rally that happened at the Capitol recently. And so these groups are sort of starting to try to set what they want the tone to be about public education. And it's like a really strange, I think, way. I mean, we've seen certainly Republicans in Arkansas who care about school choice, right? Who want to make school choice more available to students. But I think this is really sort of a sea change in terms of the message, right? The message now is not only are we going to do all this stuff that we want to do about school choice, but we're going to really do it in a way and target things so that we are removing funding opportunities from public ed. I mean, it's this sort of like, we've got to abandon it, and what we found here is this phrase, fund students, not systems. And I think that, to me, that really tells a lot, right, about the mentality of and sort of the intent of the policy. And so I just thought I wanted to highlight this tweet, and obviously that Governor Sanders retweeted it too, right? Just like a total endorsement. But let's hop to the next one. These quotes.
Ezra, I just wanted to say, I don't know if any of you read this, but in my column today, I talked about that tweet because that guy, Corey DeAngelis, he is apparently on kind of a tour, a Koch brothers tour of states doing this just as part of the bigger picture. Like, we're so focused in on Arkansas, but like the big picture is that this is happening all over the United States. And it's the same, like, billionaire groups funding these movements in everywhere. And so that guy on that, could you just go back to that just so we can, I just want to look at it while I'm saying this. So if it's not too hard, if it is, don't worry. But that tweet, that Corey DeAngelis guy is going around to these states, like sort of helping lead these pep rallies. And he tweeted the exact same picture with the exact same words, just a different governor, like the next day. It was the Iowa governor instead of Sarah Sanders. And it was another woman governor in Iowa. And it said the exact same thing. Iowa will fund, students, not systems. I mean, it's like cut and paste, like cookie cutter. Anyway, I just for a big picture moment, I wanted to add that.
Well, it's a great point, and it is super cookie cutter. The nice part about it, right, when we look at states like Iowa that are just a few steps ahead of us in this process, is even though the privatization movement is super cookie cutter, the response in defense of public education is extremely local, right? I mean, it's galvanizing a ton of people, and so I want to talk about that, but I completely agree, Gwen.
Well, it even just makes the irony of the one size fits all school just so glaring, because that's one of their big talking points. There's, it's not one size fits all. We need to just let people go wherever they want, blah, blah, blah. And they're literally making one size fits all for every state. It doesn't matter. We're apparently the same as Florida and Iowa and Arizona. And anyway, go on.
No, I completely agree. I pulled these two quotes because I wanted to pause on them for a second. I think these sort of represent two different angles of the sort of narrative, right? The first one is a very politically motivated discourse, right? It's about like public education is perceived as a place where brainwashing happens, right? Where like there's, I see it so much from Governor Sanders, official Twitter, that just like she would seem to believe that like you are getting a very left-wing political education in public school in Arkansas. And I just think that's so far from reality. But it's certainly part of what's driving this, right? Is that there's a certain perception. And so I think when we think about our Republicans in the state legislature, how do we start to counter message against that, right? Against, explaining that this is not a problem in Arkansas, right? I'm not sure it's a problem anywhere, but it's definitely not a problem here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the second part of the second quote, which I pulled. This is from allegedly, he was at the school choice rally. I don't know who this gentleman is, but he told the reporter that he was a former school administrator or maybe school board member. But I just highlighted in the part that I thought was interesting, but now if that is the only way a child can get a decent education, because that's part of the other part of the narrative, right? Which is, even if you don't believe that public schools are left-wing like indoctrination camps, then they are just fundamentally broken, right? There's just nothing we can do. And we got to move on in light of, understanding that they're just broken now. And so that's something we must push back on, right? Because that's also just not true. Like, I understand that public education has a lot of things that could be improved upon in Arkansas, but I've been following public policy in Arkansas for a while now, and just sort of, I'm also a fan of like political history. And we've made huge strides in education in Arkansas, right? And it was not through dismantling public ed. I mean, there is clearly paths where state government can play a huge role in actually affecting real change, and you don't have to abandon the model.
Mm-hmm.
So let's skip to the next one. I want to pause on this and we're going to kind of move through this a little bit faster. We know now that Governor Sanders is packaging all of her education, reforms, quote unquote, into an omnibus bill. And so that sort of, it rolls everything together into a bill. And I wanted just to pause strategically right on what that means for us. One, right, there will be some stuff in there that we like. Right, there's probably going to be some sort of increase in teacher pay, and we definitely want that, right? But there's a goal here of tucking it in, right? Is because we don't want the rest of it. Also, making it her signature bill in the first major legislative package that she's sort of overseen, she's implicitly telling the members of the General Assembly that this is really important, right? And so there's going to be pressure from her office on all the legislators to sort of accept this, right? And to not make a big change, right? Because it's going to be directly against her administration's stated position on something. And then also, right, just like getting out the big bill early sort of fences in things, right? If you can imagine, a more laissez-faire governor who would have allowed the legislature to lead on this, there would have been a ton of different options, right? There would have been options that reflect the geographic, class, whatever income diversity of the state. And so just by sort of trying to occupy it, right, it closes it in. So we've got to tackle that. Of course, there's some good stuff, right? I mean, there's going to be a bunch in this bill that a lot of people don't like, and plenty of conservative people will not like. It also is going to mean that they have a lot more that they've got to jump through procedurally. And so I won't bore you with that. I'm sort of reading up on the House and Senate rules about how this will work, but it's harder. And also her package, right? This is a single bill, is going to have a huge fiscal impact. And so that is going to hang over the head of this thing. And I think it's going to show sort of the magnitude of the impact, right? And so that's going to be very helpful in building what I'll call like support amongst the practical people, right? Who maybe have no ideology, but just can see that like, oh gosh, Arkansas really doesn't have just a huge amount of money, right? We're not a state that can just sort of play with the money that we do have. So let's go to the next one. And then we can skip this, just a title page. So this is sort of what the third section of this is talking about public ed, right? And it's irreplaceable. I mean, I'm not going to bore you guys with this. You can't do this without public schools. You know, rural communities completely left behind. We're already seeing that. They have no option. There's nowhere to go, right? And then where you have bigger communities, like we're going to see very quickly that most of these private institutions are not interested in like being accessible to the general public. They're not interested in stepping in and filling in a huge gap, right? That's going to be left behind for that otherwise public school would fill, right? So we can move through this. I want to kind of speed up a bit. I don't think a lot of folks really talk about education policy in terms of like constitutional rights. But Arkansas has a sort of exceptional history of judicial intervention protecting public schools, right? I think everyone's probably heard of the Lakeview decisions. There are many Supreme Court decisions in that case concerning a wide range of issues, but you know, the punch of it is very clear. The Arkansas Constitution guarantees to its citizens a system of public education. Right? No ifs, ands, or buts. This is a matter of right in our Constitution. It's, you know, people I think forget about constitutions, but they are the governing document, right? I mean, this supersedes everything. So let's hop to the next.
Ezra, can I just jump in there too? I know you're an attorney, so you might speak to this, but I spoke to another attorney this morning who quoted from Lakeview all the places that it says systems, and was just pointing out the irony of this funding students, not systems. Like they're constitutionally admonished, like it's required that we fund these systems. Of course, they're for students, but
no, you've hit the nail right on the head. That's what's so interesting to me about how provocative the language is in Arkansas, right? I mean, it's like such a clear adverse position to take against public education. It's sort of shocking. You know, and so I've put
really in the face of the Constitution.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, but here's my thing. Arkansas Supreme Court has stepped in before, right? And we have Lakeview. Lakeview was certainly the product, though, of the majority of the Supreme Court in Arkansas in the early 2000s, right? Like that is a reflection of the politics of the Supreme Court more than anything. And the politics of the Supreme Court in Arkansas has dramatically shifted. And so I will say, you know, I'm a lawyer, obviously. I think about systems and the judicial branch and live sort of all within those rules. But we need to think outside of just what judicial protection can offer, because it may not be there, right? And also it's sort of a place of last resort, right? Mm-hmm. If we've gone to the Supreme Court because this is passed, right? It's passed, and we have bigger problems. And so, yes, Lakeview exists. Yes, there's a constitutional protection for education, but we have to go win this fight in the legislative branch. And that's sort of why I included this here is, yes, I think, you know, we're sort of righteous, right? In both fact and also just the spirit of the law. But we can't count on the Arkansas Supreme Court to do what it did, you know, more than a decade ago now. So we can hop to the next. And then this I just included because, well, I mean, I have, you know, painting of Abraham Lincoln over my desk here, but I think this is just fundamentally true, right? Like public education is practically the best way to educate the citizens of Arkansas. Public education is a constitutional right of the citizens of Arkansas, but it's also true that like the availability of public education is determinative of everything that happens in the future generations of our state, right? Like our body politic is formed in public schools by taking kids from the poorest neighborhoods to the richest neighborhoods and squishing them together in the same little seats, right? And learning from each other and learning empathy and respect and just to be different, right? Like stratifying all of the things that make us different, which already exist, right? I mean, there's rich and poor in Arkansas, but I think, right, stratifying it from such an early age, shutting people out entirely from educational opportunities, you know, it has, I don't know, it's such a dark thought, right? And so I included this mostly just as a reminder, right? Like this is so much bigger. I mean, this is about like what is owed to a free and democratic society, right, of citizens. And so I'll get off my soapbox, but I think that matters. So we can go on. Okay, and so this is the meat. This is what I really want to spend most of my time on. And don't worry, there's not a ton of slides. You can hop to. So we gotta like build, guys. This is, you know, you guys have done a great job. Teachers, public education supporters, you guys have sort of led the way, especially in the last year or two around teacher pay. You've organized tons of people and it's awesome. Like I'm kudos to you, but this is not enough, right? This is sort of, you've scratched the surface of what the potential is for public educators and supporters of public education. And so the answer to the people on the call of what is next is you have got to engage your colleagues. Mm-hmm. You've got to engage the folks in your district, and where you have cross-district relationships, friends, family, whatever, like now is the time. I mean, you know, we have got to identify everybody who could potentially be someone who would stand up for public education and reach out to them. Mm-hmm. So that's one part. The second part is the legislature must hear from you all. Mm-hmm. Like that is going to be the main ask for the next 3 months. We have to work our legislators in district and in Little Rock, online, in person, right? Wherever they are, we need to be with a positive, peaceful, but very, very firm campaign, right, for public education. Because the pressure that these folks are going to feel to toe the party line, right, in a time where partisanship is so high, it's going to take a lot. So I have a few things that we're going to go through in the next couple slides that sort of just break down like very simple things on how to do that. A lot of this is very, you know, it's just little snippets, right? There's tons of stuff that you could read, and there's tons of organizing manuals, things that we're going to try to reduce to more manageable trainings and other things in the future. So if you have questions about this, just know this is sort of just a little taster. And with that, we can hop to the next. And so this may be a little bit repetitive, but it's sort of a roadmap to where we're going. I want to spend time talking about like organizing by storytelling and sort of the impact of that. And then I want to also highlight again, right, like you have got to engage your community, your folks in your areas who trust you, you know, because this is like, most people are not political. Most people do not know about the General Assembly. They don't really know about what's going on in state government, right? So it's your trust. It's the fact that they like you, they listen to you, you know, you're going to be the bridge that gets them to pay attention to what otherwise is like pretty boring. And then, you know, the last thing I'll say too is you will be amazed the benefits that you will reap just from building space in your community. You have no idea how many people think like you do, care about schools like you do, and like they're not going to do anything right unless they see someone they know or that they trust standing up. And so just standing up, you're going to offer, and you're going to have so many people that you didn't realize, right, care and come up and just say, oh my gosh, I'm glad you posted that on Facebook, right? Or I'm glad you said something, because it does matter to me. So, okay, let's hop to the next. This I think is like probably the most important slide. People think that this is easy, and I'm not trying to scare you or dissuade you. Certainly organizing is a lot of fun, but it's not easy. Organizing is about being intentional, right? Organizing is about engaging people, supporting them, and mobilizing them to an action. And that's that's tough, right? And you have to be able to do a lot of things very quickly, because for most people, right, they want to read something on Facebook or Instagram. And so they're not going to read something that's super long, right? They're not going to go after and read your like 20 essays that are smashed onto the Instagram page or Facebook comment. And if you can't articulate in just a few seconds, right, like an elevator pitch, what you want from them in person, they don't have time. I mean, it's difficult, right? Because our base is public school teachers. And I don't like, there are a few professions who have little time, right? Or as little time as public school teachers. They're super, super busy. And when they're not busy, they're pretty tired. And so when we're thinking about engaging them in the hallway or on a walk to the parking lot or in the cafeteria or, you know, in some evening on the phone, you need an elevator pitch. And it needs to be meaningful, right? It can't be some rambling thing where you sort of, you know, spout out a few ideas about politics, you maybe get political where you shouldn't or whatever, right? I mean, you need to go in prepared. And so thinking about it in form of storytelling is really impactful, right? I mean, one, like humans are storytellers. It's sort of like our, you know, essential mammalian quality, right? We can tell each other about threats, we can perceive things, you know, it's sort of what's made us exceptional. And that hasn't changed in the modern world, right? You identify with people, with protagonists in books or movies that you like because of their story. And so you have to think about what is your story. And that's like not easy, right? I mean, one, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about the reasons that have drawn us to be on a Zoom, right, on Sunday night at 7 to talk about public policy, but that's part of your story. And so breaking it down, I think, into these three components, you know, and sort of, it's what makes an essential elevator pitch to someone, right? And I'm thinking about like, you're trying to talk to that person who's a colleague or a friend of yours, right? And what do you need to tell them, right? So you need to tell them why you care about it, right? That's sort of your story. You need to have something that connects you and them together, right? And so that is why this should matter to them. And that's got to be more than just like, oh, you're a school teacher too, right? And then the now of that is, what is the driving thing we can do about it, right? Like, what is the thing that unifies us, that brings us a solution to our cause, right? And that we can, at the end of it, say, okay, we accomplished something. And so I could do, you know, whole workshops on this. But I think when you're thinking about this, like get out a pen and paper and just write a few sentences under each of these things, right? Why do you care about this? Is it for your children? Is it community? You know, is it something that happened to you that made a huge difference in your life? I mean, I can easily think about the public educators who changed my life, right? Or the reason I went to law school, that I care about reading, right? And then you need to also think too, you know, what is your connection to the other person? I mean, and make that meaningful, right? That can't be cookie cutter. And then also, you know, like, what is the now? And I think you're going to have opportunities to write that in, right? Because you'll hear things from Gwen or from Jenny or from other folks in this coalition. There will be asks, right? There will be, hey, tweet this, call this person, text this person, show up to this thing. And so you'll want to incorporate that, right? I mean, that's sort of the meat of why we're doing it.
Yes.
Gwen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, it's just great. I feel like I'm in church. I'm like, yes, 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 yes.
We can skip to the next one then. Okay, so this is another part of it. So if storytelling is the most important slide, this is slide number 2. And so in organizing spaces, you'll hear about the one-on-one a lot. If you've done like anything kind of political, you may have encountered this term. This is just, you know, a way of thinking about your meetings with the folks that you're engaging. Because it's hard, right? Like, it is really difficult to engage someone, get them to care about a thing, and then get them to show up and do a thing, right? That takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of validation, right? Because you have to support this person. And, you know, it takes a certain amount of intentionality, right? Like, if we're going to build a huge rally at the Capitol, you know, other than the logistics that it's going to take a lot of just time, right, to organize each other. And so when organizers are thinking about those relationships, they break them down into sort of 3 phases. The first one is that introductory pitch, right? That's the conversation in the hallway with a colleague. And, that could be a conversation on Facebook, right? But it's better if it's in person or on the phone. There's just a more real connection, right? Because this isn't supposed to be a passing thing. This is supposed to be a hook, right? We're trying to interest this person into the thing we care about. And so that's your elevator pitch, right? That's your quick, here's my info, here's why you should care, here's what you can do. The second part of that phase is the maintenance phase, which is often really neglected, and it's the reason why most movements don't really get off the ground, right? And that's the check-in, right? That's the sharing information with, your circle of teachers or public ed supporters, right, in your community. That's the little coffee, that you get when you're exhausted and it's been a super long week and the news has been terrible, right? And you're taking care of each other. These are the little things, right, that don't require any escalation, right? We're not asking anybody to do anything. We're just sort of checking in, right? This is like the quality part of the organizing. And like I said, when people fail to do this, they like burn out their people, right? Because you just hit them with requests all the time. And it's, you don't like spend time educating them, right, or sharing resources or information. And we're going to have a ton of that, right? We'll have tons of things that you can quickly read, quickly push out, make your own, right, in the form of tweet sheets or Facebook posts or, shareable little infographics. And so being intentional about that is just vital. And then there's the third, which is obvious, right? That's asking somebody to do something. And it's probably the most difficult, right? Because you can think about it all day long, but then if I were to just like call on someone randomly in this Zoom and say, hey, ask me to do this thing, right? Call a legislator or tweet this or show up somewhere. That's hard, right? Like you'll probably give them a lot of outs, it'd be super soft, give them a lot of, oh, I'm sorry to bother yous and things like that. And, good organizing is about eliminating all of those buts and ums and little hesitations, right? Good organizing here is to say, okay, I've got you interested in this. I've helped you, right? I've maintained this relationship. I've supported it. Okay, well, now is the time that we are going to show some of our strength, right? Our group is going to do something and I need you to be part of doing it, right?
Yes.
That's what's called the hard ask. It doesn't hesitate, it doesn't give an out. It's not mean, right? We're not trying to pin people in, but we're also trying to get a thing done, right? And it's not going to happen unless we can mobilize people in huge numbers, right? And that takes the ability to say, okay, we're going to go do this and I need you to actually show up. And so I think I've kind of covered all the points I wanted to make here, but these two things work in tandem, right? I mean, it's your storytelling, it's the way that you can build your personal narrative into the fight for public education that's going to bind your local teams together, right? Your supporters, that's what's going to feed them over any sort of policy thing. I love the comment, I can't read all of it, but I love the comment about shareable graphics. Next one, I think we're sort of getting close to the end here. This I'm going to breeze through. This is sort of just a sketch of what's to come, right? So the two most important things you can do in your community from our perspective, right? I mean, and probably one outweighs the other here is just communicate, right? Build lines of communication, phone calls, text groups, social media pages, anything that works for your community, that's great, right? We're not trying to say there's a one size fits all approach, but build out these lines of communication and maintain them. We're certainly going to be pushing out tons of stuff, but we want it to be able to go somewhere, right? And we want it to go to people who care about it and will actually digest it. And we can't do that without you. The second thing that we're going to be asking, right, is, one I've already covered, right? The first bullet point, team meetings, right? Take care of each other, those sort of maintenance one-on-ones. And then also we're going to try to get you guys to engage with your legislator, right? In your community. That's super impactful. A coffee with your legislator, inviting your legislator to come to the school, to meet with you, to meet with administrators. It's going to humanize this, right? It's going to personalize this. I mean, most legislators know their folks in their community, but that doesn't mean that they've heard from you, right? And so you reaching out to them and we can help you, right? We can help you with everything it would take to have that meeting and to make it go smoothly. but it's got to happen. And it's not effective if it's happening from other parts of the state, right? Like a Jonesboro legislator doesn't really care to hear from a Fayetteville teacher. It's not mean-spirited, but it's not my constituent. And so we're going to try to build this as local as possible because it's going to be the most effective. And then, I think we want to be ambitious too. Like we want to help you guys organize town halls, opportunities to have big public education visibility events, whatever it takes. To just demonstrate to the community, right? Like we are going to fight for our public schools. This is not something that we're just going to say, okay, and shrug our shoulders. And then let's get next one, please. If that slide is about kind of your locality, then this is sort of a preview of what the statewide engagement is going to look like. From here on out, we basically want to dominate online spaces, right? We want to be all over Twitter, all over Facebook, on Instagram. The legislators are super addicted to their phones, right? Like if you go watch them, they're just always all sitting there looking at their phones. They're on Twitter all day long. You can be really effective, just getting out and seeing stuff that's just been blasted out, retweeted, getting lots of chatter. It's sort of intimidating, right? And it sort of shows the amount of public interest. We touched on it already, but we're gonna need people like who are on this call to come to Little Rock and testify. And we need them from all over the state, and we will help you. I will spend however long it takes making sure that you feel ready. But like our legislators have to hear from you. And that means showing up and signing up and sitting down in front of the mic and either answering questions, making points, but it's crucial. I mean, if you look at the fights in Iowa, in Florida, in other parts of the state, or in the parts of the country, the difference is often made over who shows up or not. And I mean, so we're going to be doing that. And then also we want to plan for some big events at the Capitol. Well, they've already had visibility events that Gwen has led, more are going to come. There was a great block party that some of you guys organized last year, or maybe the year before last. We want to build on all of those successes. And so that's certainly something we'll be talking about. The next one, I think we're basically towards the end. This I stole from my local legislator, Representative Nicole Clowney, and she wouldn't care because she's great, and this is just good advice. But just some like quick talking points on talking to legislators. They are just people, I mean, they're not like, they're certainly political animals. They love it, right? But at the end of the day, like they're just Arkansans. So we really want to find folks who are in district to call their own legislator, right? It's just the most impactful thing. And we're going to help you, right? We're going to help give little talking sheets, tweet sheets, whatever. So you'll have all the tools to be on, if you get somebody on the phone or you have someone, who will have a meeting with you, you'll have everything to be super professional, very specific, right? Here are our points. Here's why this is good for Arkansas. Here's why this is bad. And just be patient, right? Like this is a process and we may lose some fights. That doesn't mean that we're going to lose this at the end. There are options outside of the session. There are options to repeal legislation that is passed. There are options to overturn it through a constitutional amendment. There are other sorts of elections for school board and legislature. I mean, this is sort of only the beginning, right? And so our organizing efforts are only going to grow from here. And then with that, I think this is going to be the last slide. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I'm a lawyer. This could also be like a very long PowerPoint, and maybe it will turn it into one. But very, very briefly, you are protected. This is protected speech. Constitutional rights are not absolute, right? You can't walk around and disrupt meetings or class or things like that. But we can organize knowing that the judicial branch does have our back on this, right? I mean, the discussion specifically about teacher pay is constitutionally protected speech. It is clearly within the rights of public civil servants like public educators to discuss their pay and advocate for an increase in pay. All of that is to say, right, good organizing is mostly about, it's right, discretion is sort of the better part of valor, and so you may be right that you have the right to do this, but we want to build really close relationships with administrators. We do not want to make the fight about public education teachers against administrators, because in truth, that's not true, right? The state government is in control of the funding that is crucial for the, success of public ed. The state legislature is the responsible body. They are the ones who's mandated with, the maintenance of the public school system. And so this is about unifying every community in Arkansas, from its students and families to its teachers to its public school administrators, and bringing all of those people, right, and bringing that pressure to Little Rock to say enough is enough. You must build real plans to address public school. And so while you're advocating, right, it's so much better to build allies, right, than to build antagonism within the community. And with that, I'm sorry, I was trying to breeze through. I think I went a little bit over than what I thought, but this is, I'll do any questions or whatever you want to do, Gwen.
That was perfect. And I loved it. Thank you so much. A couple of things I wrote down that I just wanted to say. There was a time in there, Ezra, when you said, something about trying to engage Republican lawmakers to show them what's happening in our schools, that this brainwashing and indoctrination and stuff isn't happening. I think a great way to do that, and that I'm seeing some of our teachers do, which is just genius, I think, too, is inviting them to the classroom. Invite them to your classroom to see what's going on there. The more people get into a public school building, the more they're going to see all the awesome stuff that's going on in there, as well as the needs that are there. I mean, I went to my kid's ball game, little kid ball game this weekend in a small rural school, and they had a bucket, where the ceiling, the roof was leaking. And so you see this need, and then you also see these wonderful kids and this cool stuff that's going on, and the teachers who are there on the weekend to support them, and the stuff that's on the walls that's so creative. And so reach out and invite them. And either way, it's a win, because if they come, they engage, you make a friend, they get free, chance for people to see them. But then also, if they don't come, you can say, I invited my rep to see what's going on at my school, and they didn't come or didn't have time or whatever. The other thing is, I wanted to say, and I think Jenny Petty alluded to this in the chat, but if you are on this training and you see and you have an interest in sharing your story, you have a good story you want to share, a lot of you are good writers yourselves. So if you write your story and you are looking for a place to publish it, please contact me. We can publish things on Arkansas Strong. And we also have some great media contacts that we can just help you, give you the email of the editor to different places that are looking for these stories and partners wanting to help us do that. And so please reach out either way. If you have your story written down and you would like some help editing it, or if it's ready to go, or if you are not, comfortable about writing it, but you want to tell it to someone who can help you write it. And then I think, let's see. I think that was, I did want to just share something great that I heard today that I hope will encourage you. We've had some talk on Arkansas Strong in Education about the bill that was filed by John Eubanks that was going to take away a lot of the local control in co-ops. And I don't know if you heard about it. The bills have been flying. But anyway, this one was a particular concern because it was going to basically make the boards that oversee education co-ops, instead of those being, the local superintendents, it was going to put them in the hands of like government appointees and government agencies, and and anyway, we had a superintendent in Eubanks district reach out to him in this same way that Ezra is describing, just, as a friend, as a constituent, and talk to him about that. And we don't know for sure if he's just going to pull the bill completely, or if at the worst, he is going to he said, there's just so many, millions of dollars involved. We just need more oversight. Then at the very least, he is going to have locally elected school board members be a part of that board too. So it would be superintendents and locally elected school board members rather than the heads, these state, agents, which you can read the bill and see exactly who they are. It was just ridiculous. So anyway, that's a win and that's good news. And that's just that's one of these bills like these ones that we're talking about that we want to call these legislators and we want to support them and we want to say, this is good and please support this, or this is not good and it, please change it. And so I thought that was a pretty big deal. That was great today as far as for local control and just stopping some of this mad takeover, big government involvement. So wanted to share that.
Gwen, I wanted to share this because I had an opportunity to go to DC last summer, but this school choice issue is really federal. And our state representative Westerman is a big supporter of that. And he does have the ear of quite a few people in our state legislature. Mm-hmm. So he was supporting a bill that Senator John Cassidy from Louisiana was putting through. My background special ed, it was to make an extra category under IDEA that dyslexia would be its own category, which right now it falls under specific learning disability. So that was really not necessary. But because he owns 5 or 6 dyslexia schools in Louisiana that his wife runs, and they make good money off of those, and they were opening several more this year. Westerman's wife is a dyslexia therapist in a school district, but obviously I'm sure they would love to get in on the financial gain that comes from having your own charter schools.
Yes.
I learned a lot from that situation because you guys would be surprised what they don't know is in actual law. Mm-hmm. Senator Cassidy's wife misquoted IDEA, which is a federal law. It was reorganized in 2004. So there's just a lot of little things like that sometimes if you draw people's attention to it, mm-hmm. it will help. I don't think they realized they had invited public educators to that because Westerman looked very shocked when he realized that we were there. But outside of that, going back to our state, one of the things that I learned there, and I appreciate you, Ezra, for talking about sharing your story, because we had a whole day with somebody from Capitol Hill that taught us how to write and share our story. And a lot of these points were mentioned, but we're talking about, organizing. And one of the things I learned from that is we had someone from almost all 50 states, and we all went to the Hill on the same day. And we did start months early, but we scheduled appointments and everybody showed up on the same day. We weren't in a huge rally group. We scheduled appointments in their offices. And that might be something to think about, because that's what makes, when we go for this special education legislative summit, and this year I'm fortunate enough to be our Arkansas team leader. So one of the things I learned is that it was so much more impactful when everybody had a meeting on the same day with their congressman.
That's genius. I love that.
And you can do a rally and they can blow you off. Even if you meet with their staffer, that's another thing I learned, is sometimes their staffers are more important than meeting with them, because that's who keeps them abreast of what's happening, the calls they're getting. That person is in charge of organizing all of the information that's going to go back in their ears. Okay. So, when we met with Senator Cotton, we first met with all of his people, and they're the people who tell him what's happening and who came by today and what's important. And if you can get their ear, they're going to remember you. And that's where storytelling is really good. I liked what Ezra said about just have your elevator pitch ready, because mm-hmm. they don't have a lot of time, but you'll be surprised at what they'll turn around and use on the floor. Mm-hmm. If they hear a story that seems impactful to them. So, and I see that somebody made the comment about they don't have staff. Mm-hmm. Some of them have a person or two. for example, I know Ben Gilmore, who's in my area, does, because I know somebody that had to call them the other day. But even if you could get to anybody there and set up a meeting, and if you could get a group from your area, like if it's your area,
Great
senator
idea.
or representative, just 2 or 3 people, and you come up with a less than 15-minute speech, and then between all of you. And we even created a story that this person spoke on this, this person spoke on this. That was super impactful. And we even had congressmen, they said, oh, they won't see you for more than 15 minutes. And I believe it was Congressman Womack had us in there for an hour and 15 minutes. And I will say this, as much as I hate to say this, if you can get a man on your team to go into that office with you, if the representative or senator is a man, it helps. And I hate to say that, but it's just the truth. It made a huge difference for us in DC, and I think it'll make a big difference here.
Thank you, Natalie. That's great. I love that idea. I'm writing that down. I think that might be a good project for us to schedule a day where we bombard them with from each area. That's a smart idea. I love that. Anybody else have questions or comments, input to add?
Well, thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future.